What if Deku had a judgment quirk? Part 1. And we now get to a 4-year-old Izuku in the quirk doctor's office with Inko and Izuku being told by a doctor that he has a type of immunity quirk which is called Judgment for All, and this quirk basically judges people who Izuku uses on the person they get judged for their crimes and actions against everything. And Izuku is happy because his quirk is a cool one and that he's basically a judge in a way. And Ingo would tell Izuku that she believes in it and that he will be a great hero because Izuku still likes All Might. And we now get to Izuku being in a park with Bakuga and his goons, and Izuku feels something strange in him, like he feels that he should not be with Bakugo and his friends, and Izuku ignores it for a while until in the following years Bakugo becomes his arrogant god complex and bullying ass self, and Izuku then realizes why he felt that he should not be friends with Bakugo, and Izuku, after realizing that, would stop being friends with Bakugo, ignoring him, and stop talking with him. But instead, Izuku started making new friends, and them being nicer than Bakugo by a long shot. And due to Izuku's nice and kind personality, his new friends allowed him to use his judgment quirk on them. And on one day of his friends be- and one and on one day one of his friends became the scapegoat for Izuku's work, and once Izuku said judgment core, the area changed and then Izuku and his friends would arrive in a code area, and the friend who we are gonna call Bob is in the middle of the wooden cage, and then Izuku, oh my god, my mic almost fell. So who we're gonna call Bob in the middle around the wooden cage, and then the judge who looks like a judge, but the face is covered with nothingness. There's literally black, and the clothes are also black. And the judge thing would say, "The trial starts now." And Izuku and his would be excited because there are some 10-year-olds finding about this cool quirk, and then the judge would say again, "The trial starts now," and give you argument on the crime of this child. And then everyone would be confused, and then a lot of stupidity. Later, Bob is unable to use his quirk for 2 hours, and everyone was shocked until Izuku said that they should wait 2 hours to see if it actually is a thing. And so they waited 2 hours later, and after 2 hours passed, Bob got his quirk back, and all of Deku's friends started hyping him up. And Deku just said that it's fine because Deku is humble. And then in the following years, Izuku and his friends would test out Deku's quirk on Deku's other powers from his Judgment Cook, and there are few powers, and there are mind reading, which they learn when Deku asks one of their friend when Deku read a mind about their friends thinking about a girl, which was very funny. And then the second ability is his Judgment for All Quirk, basically is from his Judgment Core, which is lightning manipulation, which they found out when Izuku was holding his phone at a low when Izuku's phone was at a low battery percent. Izuku charged it with his lighting, and then they are now doing it every time their phone gets to low battery. And then the last being, which is wood manipulation, which they found out when Izuku was training with the industry. Instead, he shot out wooden shards, which was very funny seeing Bob take them out his face. And we now time skip to the last day of the crappy school Izuku is in, and the teacher is telling everyone about the career aptitude test. And then everyone would groan, and then the teacher would say that he knows they all wanna be heroes, and then everyone would use Deku and delete, and Deku would slightly use the lightning part of his quirk, and then the teacher saying that the two students from this school are actually planning to go to A, and everyone was like, whoa. And then the teacher said that the first person is Katsuki Bakugo and the second person is Izuku Midoriya. And Bakugo would sneer at this, saying, "Oh, Deku, you really think you're going to UA with that quirk? Then go to hell." And then after Bakugo said that, the teacher told him to shut up, and after the teacher left the class, Bakugo tried to explode Deku's egg, but Izuku protected by covering it with some wood, and then telling Bakugo if he keeps doing that again, who will call him a hero with that personality, and with that attitude he looks like a villain more or less. And everyone would class would agree, even Bakugo's friends, because unlike Izuku who has a strong quirk but does not gloat about it, Bakugo always threatens people, curses, and is just a pain in the ass, and Bakugo would be pissed and he is about to attack Deku until Izuku shocked Bakugo's body with a jolt of lightning, and Izuku said coldly, "Do that again, and I." Okay, let me rephrase that. And Izuku said coldly, "Do that again, and your quirk will be unusable for a week." And after Izuku said that, Bakugo would scoff, not saying anything, like a bitch, and leaving while growling, and the class would tell Izuku how great he is and that he will be a great hero, and Bakugo, hearing this from outside, would be pissed, and he would say that damn Deku thinks he's something. I will show him. And after Bakugo said that, we now get to Izuku walking back home and taking a different shorter route under the bridge. And then Izuku would feel some movement and the sludge villain would come out of the sewer looking at Izuku and say, "Damn it, I did not know he was there." And Izuku will slightly back off and saying, "Who is here?" And then the sludge villain would scoff saying, "I need your body, kid." And after Izuku heard that, Izuku laughed in and used the lightning part of his judgment for all Quirks, shocking the sludge villain down easily. And then All Might comes out of the sewer, and as All Might, and once he came out, he looked at Deku and asked if Izuku took down the sludge villain, and Izuku would say yes, and All Might would congratulate Izuku as All Might puts the sludge villain in a jar, as he would ask Izuku if he has a lightning quirk, and Izuku would say no, that, and then saying that the lightning is a part of his entire quirk, and Izuku also says that his quirk is a bit complex, so it will take a long time to explain. And All Might not asking Deku if he is planning to go to an UA, and Deku would nod. And after All Might telling Deku goodbye and thanks after Izuku and giving, and then a thanks after giving, and All Might would say thanks after giving Izuku a autograph, and then All Might would leave. Then Izuku would keep walking until he hears a noise which is a bit far away. Like this happened like 30 minutes later, but he managed, and then noise which is a bit far, but he managed to get there. And then sees a bunch of heroes waiting because the villain has a hostage, and Izuku would look at the villain, and that seeing is the sludge villain. It's all because of All Might had dropped the jar containing the sludge villain. And Izuku, after seeing the sludge villain, he would see Bakugo, one of his class, and before anything else can happen, Izuku activates his judgment for Judgement Quirk, and then everyone would be shot at being in this court area, including civilians would be shot at being at this, and the court area, including Deku and civilians, and the heroes and Bakugo with the civilians, while the heroes on the left and Izuku on the right, and the sludge is in the middle of the room. And then Izuku would say, "The trial starts now," and then he explained what the trial rules are. And after Izuku said that, Izuku would explain it even better. And when the Surgeman tried to lunge at Izuku, he was shocked because he tried to leave the cage around him. And then everyone would quickly give their reason to why the Sludge should be punished. And Izuku would then look at the Sludge telling him to say his defense. And the heroes and civilians would tell Deku that the Sludge tried to kill a child, and Baku would scoff. But then Izuku would say silence. My quirk doesn't work the way. Everyone gets a fair chance at protecting themselves or winning themselves. That's it. And everyone would shut up. And after Izuku said that, everyone would shut up. And then Izuku would say to the sludge villain to say his defense. And then the sludge villain would say that his defense and why he did it. And the civilian and heroes would counter back the saying that all the arguments and defense. And then after a while of bitching about it, which I'm not going to make, Izuku said all arguments and defenses are over, and the sludge villain, or formerly known as Victor, is guilty with a medium price, so now his court will be unusable for 1 month, and that's all. And after Izuku said that, uh, everyone would be back at the same part, including Baku, and the sludge villain being his human form, and then the heroes quickly detained him, and then the heroes scolded Izuku for doing that, but the civilians take Izuku's side, saying that he saved that kid and that he's a real judge or hero, I guess. Izuku must smile, and the heroes would let him leave, and Baku would be even more pleased at seeing Izuku being praised by everyone, and the fact that he needed someone like Izuku to save him, but he could not do anything about it because Izuku just saved him. And then Izuku would leave, and after all of this all of this would be seen except Baku's BS by All Might. And when Izuku was going back home, he was shot by All Might, saying that he sees a hero in Izuku, that he feels that Izuku is worthy because of his bravery and quirk, and All Might gives Deku the offer of having his quirk one for one. And Izuku would first ask how, and All Might would explain how One for All works, and then Izuku would refuse All Might's quirk, shocking All Might. Izuku would explain that his quirk should go to that All Might's quirk should go to someone whose quirk or someone that actually needs it. And if All Might wants to help him, then he can maybe give him some advice. And All Might would smile, giving Deku some words of encouragement and telling him that Deku will have a bright future and he wants to sponsor Deku because he feels that Deku can be a great hero. And Deku refuses this, also stating that someone else who might have needed it or someone else for would be better instead of him because he's already going to A. And after Deku said the All Might would smile, telling Deku that he can feel that Deku will do great things, and All Might says good luck to Deku. And after giving Deku his number, All Might and Deku part ways. And we now do a 10-1 time skip to Deku training at Dragoma Beach and Deku training his three sub course of Judgment for All and learning more about Judgment Code, and he would learn how to use his lightning wood and mind reading even better and much longer at an even higher range of usage. And he would learn how to create wood golems, dragons, and a lightning bow, and controlling million people's minds at once, and also training physically too at Aikido. And then after all that training, the 10 months end. And then Izuku was taken to UA entrance exam by Inko, and then Izuku gets out of the car and says goodbye to Inko as he gets in the testing area. As Izuku takes his seat, then the written exam starts, and Izuku passes it easily because he's smart as hell, and 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 then present mind as every one of the second he tests the robot watch, and then he explains about the 1, 2, and 3 pointer, then Ida interrupts him stating that he forgot the 0 point and that it is very unprofessional, and then present might tells Ida to shut up because he was getting there, and then present might would explain the 0 pointer, and then Izuku is getting in front until he stopped. Izuku was trying to get into the front until he stopped by Ida, and Ida saying to not distract the girl in front of him, and Zeus says that he's just going to the front, and now the girl and Ida apologizes, and then they both part ways. After a bit, Present Mike says, "Go, go, go! There's no time in a hero fight." And then everyone who started getting in there, including Izuku, who started to electrocute the 1, 2, and 3 pointers to where it will do the most damage. And so Izuku does not waste his stamina, and Izuku is getting no wait, Izuku is beating the 1, 2, and 3 pointers with his lighting easily and getting a total of already 106 points until the 0 point came out courtesy of Nezu, and Izuku would ignore it for a while until he heard a person scream, and then he saw a girl who is Ochako and someone, and the 0 point was about to crush the until Izuku created a wooden dome around her. As Izuku created a wooden dragon, and the large dragon goes through the entirety of the 0 point, which shocked Nezu and the other heroes who are watching in the booth. And Nezu asked for Izuku's file, and then he got it, and Nezu saw Izuku name, Izuku Mirror, age 15, Quirk, Judgment for, and Nezu, after reading all of Izuku's personal things, would smile for some reason. And we now get back to Izuku, who took Oshaku to recovery goal. As Izuku is about to leave through the gate, he is approached by Aizawa, and Aizawa told Deku that he has to come with him, and Deku asked if he was in trouble, and Aizawa said no, and stating that the principal wants to talk with him, and Izuku not following Aizawa until they get to Nezu's office, and then Izuku meted Nezu, and Nezu telling Izuku to sit, and Izuku did so, and Izuku asked why, he was told to come here, and Nezu said that they were impressed by Izuku's talent and abilities, so that they can see that he will have a great future as a hero, and they are willing to give him a full free ride scholarship to UA High. And Izuku, after hearing this, thought for a while. Wait, let me check something. Thought for a while. Okay, thought for a while, and then accepted. So the deal was an and now I need a water break. Uh, And after that, Ezekiel left Radford and told his mom Inko about the great news, and then as they both got out of the house to a restaurant to celebrate Ezekiel's achievement of getting in UA High. The restaurant they were at had unknowingly a villain attack on was about to happen, and due to heroes being far away, Izuku while Izuku knew he could not use his he could not use his quirk for this without a hero rising, but there were people in danger, so he activated his judgment core, and then there were people in danger, so he activated his judgment core, and everyone was first shot, but Izuku explained what this is and to get their cases, and everyone quickly got out of the shock, and then finally Izuku said, Sharkbeard, or formerly known as Toby, is guilty, and his punishment is he is unable to use his quirk for 2 weeks. And I'm not mentioning. And after Izuku said that, everyone were back in the restaurant as the shark villain became his human form. Izuku quickly knocked him out, and then he was detained by the heroes who came in after 5 minutes later. And the people of the restaurant congratulated Izuku and praised him and telling him that he will be a great hero. And while the heroes wanted to scold him for doing something so reckless, the restaurant owner and the civilians backed Izuku up, and the heroes gave up, knowing there is no point to argue with the civilians, and Izuku would not. And after a while later, he and his mom, Inko, would go back home, and we now time skip to Izuku going to UA High and entering Class 1A, and once he enters, he sees many different peoples until Bakugan bickering with the blue-haired student while Baku was bickering the blue-haired student until he saw Izuku until Bakugo saw Deku and Scott saying, "There's no way you got in here. You definitely cheated." And Izuku saying boldly, "If I did cheat, then why did they let me enter in UA? Hi, Bakugo." And after Izuku said that, Bakugo stopped saying nothing. And then Izuku took a seat in the front. Then finally, after a bit, Ujako arrives in class 1A, and before she could talk to Izuku, Aizawa would tell them to put these on and meet him outside because they're having a test. And Ujako would ask about orientation, and Aizawa would shut it down, and then he says to follow, and then all of them get it on and then go outside to see Aizawa waiting. Aizawa saying the number one student to come into the circle, and Izuku and Baku would come in front, and before Baku would say anything, Aizawa told Baku to move aside, and Baku was annoyed moving aside as Aizawa gives Izuku a ball and tells him to throw it as far as he can, and Izuku puts all of his strength into it, reaching at least 900 meters, and everyone would start saying this is fun until Aizawa said that the student who comes in last will be expelled, and everyone would start complaining until Aizawa shut it down, and then everyone would start doing the Coke assessment. And then after all of the tests were done, Izuku managed to get one. Izuku wants to get number one in 8 out of 10 of them. And Isaiah would say that number one student in this Quirk assessment is Izuku Midori. And Baku, after hearing this, would be pissed and would try to hit Izuku with an explosion, but Aizawa would stop and tell Baku that if he ever does that again, then he will be expelled. And before Baku could retort, Izuku would say coldly and uncaring, Bakugo, if you do that again, then I'll make sure to beat some sense into you. And after Izuku said that, Baku was even more pissed but was unable to do anything because of Aizawa being there. And after a while later, the class would end, and then after a while later more, Aizawa would approach as Izuku asking him about his outburst, and Izuku would tell him that he thinks about that, but he believes that Bakugo will become a villain if his mindset is still like this, and that he can't take Bakugo's bullshit, and that UA allowing Bakugo to enter was a horrible idea because they ignored Bakugo's way of doing it and acting because Bakugo had a strong hook, and Aizawa would sigh and basically would say, "You don't have to say anything, Mr. Aizawa. I'm going back home, so goodbye." And Aizawa, after getting out, Aizawa would sigh again and would also say goodbye. And both Izuku and Aizawa would part ways as Nezu and All Might and Aizawa would start talking about the students. And Aizawa telling them all the conversation he had with, and All Might would compete for because of what Izuku had said. But All Might said that he believes in that Izuku is a good kid and that he will become a great hero as long as he is supported by you and Nezu and Aizawa. And then after a bit more talking later, their conversation is without not even talking about Bakugo. And we now time skip to a few days later to UA to at UA High, and then Aizawa telling them that they are gonna have another test, but this time they're gonna have a new teacher. As Aizawa finished saying this, All Might came in class saying, "I'm coming to the door like a normal person." and then everyone would start blazing All Might, and they would start blazing All Might, and then All Might would start and would say that the close me the person Izuku would say that that is not true, and everyone would be shouting that he questioned All Might, and All Might would say that maybe, but they should get ready in the hero costume, and everyone would do so, and go to change, and then trading into the hero costume. And once they all got out of the changing room, they were selecting costume, while Izuku's hero costume is just being regular clothes, and Izuku started saying that this is what he likes, and before anyone else can say anything, All Might spoke up explaining that what the heroes versus villain test is. And then in the first round, it's Katsuki Bakugo and Kirishima who are the villains versus Izuku Midori and Shuro Todoroki who are the heroes. And and then after All Might said that, Izuku and the four of them would get to the designated areas, and Shoto would told Izuku that Izuku does not need to help him, and Izuku said, "Are you sure?" That's a Omni-Man reference. And Shoto nodded, and Izuku said okay as he waited a while until Todoroki closed the entire building when All Might said go. And after Todoroki returned, Todoroki would start walking up the stairs until he was attacked by Baku and Kirishima, and Todoroki was unable to defend himself because he had lowered his guard by a lot, and so Todoroki was defeated due to his stupidity, I guess, but he was lowering his guard too much, and I'm doing this for the plot. And then Bakugo and Kirishima would quickly run to where Izuku is, and once they got there, they saw Izuku just standing until Bakugo said, "Go to hell, Izuku!" as he shoots an explosion at Izuku, and Izuku would dodge it easily as he goes close to Bakugo and uses Aikido, the thing where where they just tap the person and they just flip over, and he would do the same to Bakugo and then punching Bakugo as Kirishima says, wow, Izuku does the same to him. And this goes on with Kirishima and Bakugo getting dogged on by Izuku and barely landing hits on Izuku. And the audience of All Might and the teacher and the students being impressed at Izuku's abilities, but as the fight would went on, Kirishima and Bakugo managed to do some kind of planning somehow with their personalities. And when they started it, Kirishima captured Deku in a body hold, and then Bakugo came in taking off the pin of a large explosion which was not in the idea of Hiroshima, which shocked Hiroshima and shocking All Might because that explosion is dangerous. And I also might have mentioned that Bakugo is at least a few times stronger than in the original, so there is a chance that Hiroshima might lose a limb as well. And All Might would say from the mic, "Bakugo, don't!" And Bakugo would not listen because of his hatred for Izuku, and this explosion of Bakugo would have major damage to Kirishima, or possibly blow off a few limbs and maybe even death. Before Kirishima could, what the fuck? Before Kirishima could get hit, Izuku got uh, in front of Kirishima, taking the hit with his back, and once the dust cleared, Izuku was seen his back almost red from the explosion. Before All Might could come in to give Bakugo a quick beating, Izuku kicked Bakugo away with full force, breaking a few of Bakugo's ribs. And Izuku raised raised his hand, looking at Bakugo, and Bakugo's eyes circle and his eyes circle as he's about to rain down a large thunder on Bakugo to kill him. But before he could, All Might punches Izuku away, but not at full force, and Izuku was sent a few feet flying away, while Izuku catches himself easy, and then Izuku reads All Might's mind, and Izuku gives All Might a gesture saying, "I read your mind, and this is useless either way. You're going to go for his help because he has a stronger quirk, so I don't need your help right now, All Might, so don't talk to me." And after he started to walk away, and when All Might tried to stop him, when All Might tried to stop him by holding Izuku's shoulder, All Might's hand was shut. And before Ahmed could say anything, Izuku left as Bakugo was taken to a hospital, and then everyone in class was shot because someone left UA, the best superhero high school in Japan, which no one would ever want to live in. Once Izuku got home, he got in his room and took off his hero clothes and taking a shower, and Izuku telling himself that he did the right thing, he did a hada hada hada, and then telling himself that he has to be Judgement, the one who will change the world. And as Izuku got out of the shower, he wrote a letter and then put on his hero outfit, as which is a which and then he put on his hero outfit, which is a black turtleneck sweater with a black trench coat with white trousers. As he goes out to the streets, he starts be defeating criminals using Judgment Quirk when he sees them, and most of them lose their quirk usage for at least a few hours, which allows Izuku to easily beat them. And this ends part one. Cause fuck me, and because the AI said that the full movie would at least be 90 minutes long. So and like and subscribe.